I could be good with just that. But we do have some more to talk about today. All right. So now that the kids are gone, I can talk about what I'm wearing under my robes. I heard a priest say one time that he loved having vestments to wear because all he had to wear under them were sandals and some cutoffs and an old sweatshirt. Now, normally, I wear the whole deal under my robes, suit, tie, the whole 9 yards. But today, I'm not wearing a tie. And the reason for that is I wanted to share a little something with you that has to do with the lesson today. And that is the only necklace that I ever wear that's not dog tags. This is a necklace that I got from my brother and sister some time ago. My sister found the little ichthus symbol, the fish symbol, and my brother got the chain. I decided on wearing this as my holy symbol after my daughter, Siobhan, one time said to me, I was getting close to Christmas, and I asked her what she wanted for Christmas. I said, hey, would you like a cross necklace? And she said, why would I want to put a Roman torture device around my neck? And it made me think, that's a darn good question. Why are we using that as a symbol? Now, you will notice in a lot of Unity churches, you don't see a cross. And that's because we tend to think of the lessons that Jesus came here to teach us, rather than the way that he was crucified as being the point of the whole deal. So I explored looking for an alternate symbol, and I came across the fish. Now, it's kind of been co-opted by a lot of our evangelical brothers and sisters. We see it on bumper stickers, and they're little silver ones that people magnetically attach to their cars, and sometimes there'll be a big silver one or two, and then a bunch of little teeny ones. What's interesting, and what I feel certain most of those folks don't know, is that they are actually wandering around with a symbol that came from paganism. The fish symbol is actually derived from some sacred pagan geometry, and I want to show you how that came to be. I'm not tremendously good at freehand drawing, but this will be good enough to get the idea. You see, where this symbol comes from is in the intersection of two circles. If I draw one circle, and then I draw another circle so that the edge of that circle is at the center of the first circle, it forms this kind of shape. And if you can imagine just kind of taking one end of it, there's our little fish. Now, what is fascinating, and what was fascinating to the ancients about this circle, is that this shape, there's a ratio of this width to this length. And the ratio of the length to the width is 1.53 to 1. Ancient geometers found that particular ratio over and over again in nature. Now, can anyone tell me where we find the number 153 in the Bible? Nobody. All right, you may remember a story where at one point the disciples had been fishing, and they were casting their nets on the side of the boat they wanted to fish on, and they weren't finding anything. And Jesus came to them and said, try casting your nets on the other side of the boat. And when they hauled in their nets, they found 153 fish. Now, metaphysically, we could look at that and say that when we try to do things according to our ego, we may not get anywhere. But when we come into alignment with natural law, those things that have been here before us and will be here beyond us, those things that we come to understand when we open ourselves to them, we find abundance. Right? Now, another thing that is interesting about this fish and the way that it has become a symbol, and since originally it was actually a symbol of sacred science, which is something of an oxymoron, except it's not. Right? So we have that symbol that we see so often on the back of a car. We now see another symbol that looks very much like it. But it's got these guys. And it's how people who believe in evolution identify themselves, somewhat in opposition to the people driving around with fish. Right? So in the second chapter of Birthing a Greater Reality, which we have been studying and will continue to study for a little while, first of all, there is way more stuff in this chapter than I can go over in the amount of time we have today. In fact, I could take all of the classes that we have scheduled from now through the middle of November and study just that chapter, and we would not get through all the material. It is so rich and so deep. So, in condensing it and deciding what's the most important thing I need to talk about today, I think one of the most important things is the idea that Robert talks about, that science and religion are not mutually exclusive, in spite of what some people might say to the contrary. That it is science's lane to teach us how things work, to uncover the nuts and bolts of the universe so that we can live in alignment with them. By using science, we are able to live in safe homes because they've been engineered. We can use all that sacred geometry and build safe things. We are obviously able to take better care of one another by using things that we've learned about in science. But where science runs into trouble is when it tries to explain why we are here. As Robert says, that's called scientism, and that's really not science's deal. And we all know people who think they can answer all of life's great questions with science. But the truth is they can't, because that's religion's lane. What religion is here to teach us is the why. Why are we here? Why was this universe formed? What is our purpose? Right? Where religion starts to run into trouble is when it starts to get into the how it all works. So when people try to read all the begats in the Bible and figure out that the earth was created 6,000 years ago, that's kind of stepping out of the box and putting religion where it doesn't need to be. And so you get, silly things like pictures of Jesus riding a dinosaur, which is the only explanation, right? If you buy into that. So what we have to do is be willing to open our minds to both the how as well as the why if we are to continue to evolve consciously. We've been talking about conscious evolution. And in order to identify how we're going to consciously evolve and where we're going, one of the things we have to be able to do is to look back, right? And we have to go a lot further back than 6,000 years. Because as Reverend Robin mentioned last week, Homo sapiens sapiens first arrived on the scene about 100,000 years ago. And what's fascinating is that we have largely physically remained unchanged for about the past 50,000 years. In our metaphysical musings with the minister on Friday, one of the folks relayed a saying or a quote that we essentially have Paleolithic brains, medieval institutions, and godlike technology, which is an extremely dangerous combination. And so it is. As Robert points out in his book, we have essentially the same noggins that we had when we were running around on the savannah in Africa 50,000 years ago. And they are designed to warn us of immediate changes, things that might be different. I've talked about this before. You know, is it something I can eat, or is it something that's going to eat me? Right? At the basic level. Right? That brain is not designed to deal with long-term trends, things like global warming or resource depletion. It's just not. I mean, you look at the people who are in charge of this planet right now. Our politicians can't think beyond the next election cycle. The media can't think beyond the next news cycle. And the people with all the money at the top can't think beyond their next $1 billion. And they're the ones making decisions that affect every last one of us. And this world is in jeopardy. We are not going to evolve anymore physically. We must evolve in consciousness. So the question then is, how do we do it? If we can't do it by, using this fish, right, the guy with the legs, because we've gotten about as far as we're going to get with that one, we got to do it using this one. We have to find a way of evolving consciously with spirit. Now, there are a bunch of different systems by which this is accomplished. And a few of them are outlined in that chapter, in Birthing a Greater Reality. And the thing that struck me the most about the varying systems is that in pretty much all of them, at some point, we have to graduate into a way of thinking where we don't wander around saying this is the right way or this is the right way. We come to a way of thinking that is inclusive. We see what is rather than what we are. We try to take off the glasses of our ego and our experience and all of our baggage and simply look at what is there. In spiral dynamics, which is one of the ways of delineating consciousness, there are 6 first-tier layers of consciousness that go from beige, I think, which is the lowest level. That's just survival. That's out there on the tundra, with a tiger and a spear. All the way up to green, which is still extremely rare in our world today. And those are mostly the folks who are trying to live sustainably and live cooperatively, right? but they still haven't made it to the second tier because most of them think they're right. And that's the trap. As long as we all still think our way is the right way, we have not yet gotten to that a-perspectival consciousness that is required for humanity to take the next step in consciousness, into true oneness, into a complete lack of againstness. When we take a look at what it is we are here to do in consciousness, there is a tremendous unfolding of spirit that happened billions of years ago. And our perception of life, God, and the universe is an integral part of that. Each and every one of us has a unique role to play in the unfolding of spirit. And we also have a unique role to play in the folding back up of spirit into oneness, even as we each perceive from a different place, as we each look out on the world with different eyes. When we can let go of our attachment to our viewpoint and understand that there are billions of viewpoints and that they're all fascinating and they are all right because they all are in this universe. When we get to that, then we can achieve the kind of oneness that will save us as a species and this planet that we have been so blessed to inhabit. In the weeks that come, we will continue to explore what evolution in consciousness looks like. Less where we came from, more where we're heading to. But for today, for this next week, I simply want to ask each of you to examine what it might feel like to be able to let go of attachment to my perspective. What if nobody's wrong? What if the fish and the Darwin are both right? Thank you, and God bless you.